Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Rainbow flags in classrooms and unisex signs in bathrooms. The Center for Disease Control claims its latest guidelines are meant to make schools more inclusive.
Critics charge this agency is promoting a social agenda that could turn America's classrooms into laboratories for gender ideology. Charlene Aaron has the story.
According to the CDC, its LGBTQ inclusivity in schools, a self-assessment tool, aims to help schools increase support for those students. One of the bigger questions surrounding this move is how does it contribute to the agency's mission of helping families, businesses, and communities fight disease and stay strong? The self-assessment document, which the CDC says is voluntary, is posted on the agency's website. It encourages educators display rainbow flags in classrooms and unisex signs in bathrooms, and urges teachers incorporate LGBTQ content in their lessons, use of student-preferred pronouns, and attendance at LGBTQ trainings. Jay Richards serves as director of the DeVos Center for Life, Religion, and Family at the Heritage Foundation. He maintains this call falls outside the scope of the agency's role as a public health entity.
So we have the Center for Disease Control pushing materials which essentially denies the reality of sex and instead offers a replacement ideology called gender ideology. I don't think people necessarily realize how profound and radical that is.
Attorney Mary Rice Hassan with the Ethics and Public Policy Center fears the move could create an atmosphere harmful to staff and students who believe it violates their religious beliefs and conscience.
This really oversteps the boundary of both what schools should be doing, but certainly what the government should be doing, forcing, in a sense, because of the implicit pressure, they say it's voluntary, but really they're putting coercion on anyone who has anything to do with the schools.
Something she warns could be a goal of organizations associated with the tool and promoting the LGBTQ movement.
It conditions kids to start questioning the most basic element about who they are, male or female. And then it includes in this assessment tool the encouragement to refer children outside the school to receive services that are going to support their self-defined sexuality or gender identity.
In a statement, the CDC responded that LGBTQ plus students experience severely higher levels of violence, bullying, and suicidal thoughts and behaviors than other students. CDC and partners developed this tool as an optional resource for school administrators and staff who are interested in better supporting LGBTQ plus youth. Please note these are not guidelines, and use is voluntary. Richards says the tool's ties to activist groups is especially troubling.
The links to activist groups like the Human Rights Campaign and some even more radical than that, I think shows the real nature of what we're dealing with here. It's not as if this is hiding in plain sight. It's not hiding at all.
He encourages concerned parents to find out what's happening in their kids' schools and to speak up.
We might notice boys in girls' locker rooms or boys playing in girls' sports. That's just the very tiny tip of the iceberg of what is actually in store if we don't stop this thing.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
It's like we lost our minds. We're trying to educate a whole generation to question their sexual identity, and it just doesn't make sense from a cultural standpoint. I'm certainly not in favor of persecuting anyone in the gay community. There should never be made scapegoats for the overall problems of our culture. But at the same time, why? And you've got to ask these questions. Why? The CDC is putting these guidelines out because of these questions. Why is there such a high suicide rate? Why is there such a high drug and alcohol abuse rate? Why is there mental illness rates that are skyrocketing in the gay community? Why is there depression skyrocketing? And the CDC is coming out and saying, well, it's because of bullying in school, and we have to re-educate everybody else in the school. But I think we're going to find over time that it's not. There's something else going on here, and this community needs our protection and our help. But the way to do that is not training children to question their own sexual identity. Well, in other news, Democrat leaders are criticizing Joe Biden's handling of classified material after investigators discovered another batch at his Delaware home. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That is right, Gordon. The FBI's 13-hour search yielded another trove of classified material. Now leading Democrats are calling Biden's actions, quote, irresponsible, and they're supporting an investigation. Dale Hurd reports.
Are Democratic leaders done with Joe Biden? On Capitol Hill, few are defending the president over his classified documents scandal, with key leaders backing an investigation. An FBI search of Biden's Delaware home Friday found a fourth batch of classified documents, including some from his time as senator, as well as handwritten notes when he was vice president. The discoveries come after Biden said last week that there's nothing to the story.
I think you're going to find there's nothing there. I have no regrets. I'm following what the lawyers have told me they want me to do.
But rather than back the president, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin said Biden should have a lot of regrets and says he's not ready to support a Biden re-election bid in 2024.
I can tell you one thing. It's unbelievable how this could happen. It's totally irresponsible. And who's at fault?
Republican Senator Ted Cruz asked on Twitter how Biden was able to take classified documents from his time as a senator more than 14 years ago. Cruz tweeted, "Every single classified document I've read, 100%, have been in a secure, sensitive command information facility in the basement of the Capitol." Senate Majority Whip Dick Durbin called Biden's handling of classified materials unacceptable.
It's not supposed to happen. Whether it was the fault of a staffer or an attorney, it makes no difference. The elected official bears ultimate responsibility.
So that's why there needs to be this independent investigation, an independent prosecutor. How many documents are we talking about? Dozens? A handful or hundreds?
A new poll shows that nearly 2/3 of U.S. adults favor Congress investigating the classified documents found at the Biden home and post-vice presidential office, including a majority of Democrats. White House lawyers reportedly requested Friday's search, but critics point out they likely would have been subpoenaed if they hadn't. Some believe the administration is hoping that by being cooperative, it can hold off an investigation that could lead to an indictment after Biden leaves office. The Justice Department in the past has declined to indict sitting presidents. And Biden undoubtedly knows the old saying from Watergate, "It's not the crime, it's the cover-up."
Watergate started as a very small burglary, and it led to the President of the United States resigning.
Meanwhile, a replacement has been named for White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain, who announced he's leaving. It's Jeff Zients, who served as White House COVID response coordinator. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thanks, Dale. Authorities are looking for a motive in the murder of 10 people at a Los Angeles area dance club over the weekend. The gunman opened fire during a Lunar New Year celebration in the city of Monterey Park Saturday night. The attack sent a wave of fear through Asian American communities. The suspect, 72-year-old Hu Can Tran, was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound Sunday after authorities surrounded the van he used to flee another dance club. The owners there disarmed him before he could carry out a second attack. 7 of the shooting victims are still hospitalized. Well, in Atlanta, police arrested 5 people over the weekend on charges of domestic terrorism after protests turned violent.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist or an attorney to tell you that breaking windows and setting fires is not protest. That is terrorism.
It is the latest in a series of confrontations between authorities and radical activists blocking construction of a new police center. Protesters calling it a night of rage in response to the killing of a demonstrator killed when police returned fire after an officer was shot. The police were clearing out an illegal camp on the property where the city plans to build a new center. Conservative radio host and Atlanta resident Eric Erickson says the activists are part of Antifa, a left-wing group that's sparked violence in other cities.
Antifa groups started flooding into the area, planting pipe bombs and other things, taking over the land to deny the police their training facility to prevent development of the land.
Erickson also says Antifa targeted a building contractor with ties to law enforcement, firebombing its offices as well as a youth center linked to the business. He also said protesters disrupted church services where the contractor's employees worship. Well, a bittersweet homecoming for the NFL's Damar Hamlin Sunday. The Buffalo Bills safety made his first public appearance since suffering cardiac arrest on the field in Cincinnati 3 weeks ago. Damar cheering on his team from a stadium suite as they faced the Bengals in the AFC Divisional Round playoffs. The stadium erupting in cheers when he appeared on the big screens. It was the last happy sight, though, for Bills fans as the Bengals beat them handily 27-10. Many credit Damar's recovery to the nationwide prayers that poured out on his behalf, and great to see him there on the field again. Gordon, back to you.
Well, it's great to see him live and kicking, and an answer to prayer. When you see that many people joining together in prayer, the whole nation uniting in prayer for him, and to see this wonderful recovery, we just say, thank you, Lord. Thank you for answering prayer.